This is a guide to developing effective glossaries. Hi, my name is Celia Llaveria Vilalta and I will be your presenter today. Here's a little bit about me. After obtaining a bachelor's degree in linguistics in Spain, I began an education career as a high school Spanish teacher, soon realizing that culturally and linguistically diverse students, their families, and educators in my school needed support with translation and spoken language interpretation in all communicative encounters where Spanish and English were involved. I became an ad hoc interpreter for my school district. I owe my expertise to the training I participated in through NATISO. I believe spoken language interpreting in the educational setting is an emergent field, and that our students and families deserve the equitable language access that only highly skilled professionals like you can provide. I hope that you find the ideas here helpful in supporting your practice as you perfect your skill set in this much needed profession. Glossaries are truly the foundation of your expertise. They are the safety net interpreters can fall back on whenever they are stuck with the meaning of a word. Consequently, it is crucial that you start thinking about how to develop your own glossary. If you already have a system that works for you, that's great. But if you don't, you're in luck because the following presentation will show you a few tips about how to create a glossary from scratch or maybe even improve the one you have. But first, let's think about what a glossary really is. A defining feature of a glossary is that it contains only a partial collection of words. Glossaries, sometimes called claves, aim to explore fields of knowledge. They don't exist to provide us with an exhaustive list of all possible words in a language. That's what dictionaries do. Glossaries are helpful to interpreters precisely because they are snapshots of knowledge domains. Therefore, in our glossary, we will only include the words or terms that are useful to us and discard the rest. So it's important we understand that glossaries should only contain the words that belong to our field of work. For every word, we can include a definition of what it means, usually in the source language, a translation, and other information such as what part of speech it is, synonyms, antonyms, other variations to that word, and additional words that term is usually associated with. When you capture a word for your glossary and include its attributes, you are delineating its limits, differentiating it from other terms. You're clarifying its use, you're profiling it. Obviously, a glossary is not an unorganized list of words, and it is not a dictionary. Glossaries are specially designed to assist interpreters and will be essential to your practice. In this class, you will begin to develop your very own glossary. To interpreters, glossaries are a way to manage the constant storm of terms they encounter daily. You may also hear glossaries referred to as terminology management systems. How do you go from a single term to creating your very own terminology management system? Well, it's easy. Step 1. Start by recognizing words in your professional environment to add to your glossary. Step 2. Have a system to record the word as soon as you are exposed to it. A small notebook or a notebook app on your smartphone may be helpful. Step 3. Profile the word. Step 4. Classify the word semantically or by using your preferred organizational system. Step 5. Keep growing your glossary by adding new terms. And finally, don't forget step 6. Refer to your new terms often. Think of a few words you want to include in the glossary. Profile them so that they fit your practice exactly the way you need them. Of all meanings a term may have, only select the acceptation that you use in your professional life. The term acceptation refers to a particular sense of the generally recognized meaning of a word or phrase, the common acceptation. The slide here shows you the word decomposition. A common definition of this word is the rot or decay of organic matter, but as an interpreter in the educational settings, You would probably not include the definition here because when you encounter the word decomposition, it is usually during a parent-teacher conference where the teacher is explaining math concepts or strategies to the family. Now, think about the term background. What acceptation of the word would you include in a glossary for an interpreter in the educational setting? Consider what other meanings the word background can have. In what contexts can we expect to see it used that are unrelated to education, such as art or architecture, for example? Do these other meanings have different translations depending on the context? Remember that only the acceptation that supports your practice should be included in your glossary. In your word profile, also include the part of speech, other notes on the term, such as where you will most likely encounter it or memorable situations where you have heard it. Variations such as synonyms, antonyms, and words you often find it used together with. The translation to your target language, and if it's a proper name, you may include the acronym DNT, which stands for Do Not Translate. Pause the video here so that you can finish profiling the word. Here's an example of a word profile for the term literacy. It was translated into Spanish, but of course, you will translate it to your target language. Notice how the general term literacy may have variations different from the classic meaning we usually see in English or even literacy class. Would you translate the term literacy differently depending on whether it's financial literacy or media literacy or simply literacy? Here's a short list interpreters use for word profiling. You may use monolingual dictionaries for definitions and parts of speech. The notes will come from your own experience or ideas about the term. There are resources for variations and related words, and also for translation. Let's practice some more word profiling with the terms you may encounter in your professional setting. On the left, you have a chart with words. Choose a couple of terms to profile them by following the model to your right. For example, here the word portfolio was defined as a collection of work products that show growth over a specific period of time. It is a noun, and the interpreter noted that they often hear teachers say portfolio during situations when teachers are explaining types of assessments to families. The interpreter included other terms that often appear along the word portfolio, such as demonstrate or performance assessment. A translation in the target language is included. In this case, it is in Spanish. Pause the video here. Now pick 2 or 3 words and practice profiling them. As you complete this activity, think about ways in which this strategy may support your practice. Does it help clarify the meaning of words? The next step is all about organization. We may have excellent profiles for all our words, but if we have a system that allows us to retrieve them quickly, all that work will be so much more useful. We posit here that alphabetical order is ineffective in interpreters' glossaries because interpreters tend to use very specific terminology in very specific situations. For example, consider the terms that you may need when interpreting for the parents of a second grader and their teacher in an impromptu meeting during the student drop-off in the morning. Imagine that the family is asking for brief clarification on when the school will be closed on the first day of winter break. Pause the video here and list a few words you may expect to hear in such a conversation. Now think of a completely different situation. Think about the terminology you may need to know if you interpret during a Q&A portion of a district meeting where families want more information about a new literacy program the district is considering adopting. Pause the presentation here and list a few words you may expect to hear in such a conversation. You may use certain words frequently in specific contexts. An alphabetical organization may not be the best way to find the terminology you need because alphabetical order arranges words by the first letter and not by the context in which they are most often used by you, the interpreter. And remember, the glossary is here to support your practice. So, how do you organize the terms in your glossary? Well, that's a highly personal choice, but you may try grouping the words by context, the situations where you most likely encounter the terms, or by topic, groups of words related by similar meanings. In Activity 2, we will practice classifying words into topics. On the next slide, you will see a list of words randomly selected from the Massachusetts Learning Standards Family Guide for 8th grade. Think of these words as clothing items you need to fold and put away in a closet. In what drawers would you put them? Would some drawers hold more than one item? In other words, can you group these words into different categories? Here's your list of words. Pause the video so that you can classify them into categories. After you have completed the activity, think about what was your thought process? What criteria did you use for your classification? What method did you follow to create order within this seemingly chaotic list of words? Mind mapping is one method to organize words into topics or contexts. Traditionally, mind mapping was done with pen and pencil or even colored pencils for added specificity. Mind maps are diagrams used to organize information graphically into a hierarchy, showing relationships among its components to the whole. Mind maps are often created around a single concept to which ideas, such as words, are added. A typical mind mapping activity would have you start by writing the central idea or theme in the middle of a paper. Around that main theme, you can create notes connected by lines, each with its own related idea or theme. For example, if the central theme of your mind map were summer, we may have several ideas coming from it, such as good weather, picnics, vacation, or air conditioning. Other things we may think of too. We may repeat the process from each note, drilling deeper into different concepts. Picnics may take us to apples, or good food, and family time. Some ideas may connect back to other ideas we already wrote. Family time may link back to vacation, for example. Getting all these words on paper or any other medium may help us see different relationships among concepts and generate new ideas. Mind mapping is such an effective methodology because users tend to create categories or topics organically and creatively. Often topics almost reveal themselves. On the next slide, you will see the same word list from Activity 2, which was taken from the Massachusetts Learning Standards Family Guide for 8th grade, mapped by categories. As you can see, the mind behind this map identified school subjects, learning English, and student support as the main categories under which all other words in the list were included. What do you think about mind maps? Mind mapping is undeniably time-consuming, but once we have several mind maps going with terms we encounter in our everyday lives, it is easy to include new ones as they come. Here are some resources for digital mind mapping. You can always use traditional tools as an alternative, like colored pencils, and paper. An alternative to mind mapping, or in conjunction with it, is using Excel sheets. Excel sheets offer us the possibility of opening different tabs to categorize words, and they have infinite number of cells. Excel sheets are especially useful as terminology management tools because the documents can be shared with the entire district as terminology repositories that all staff can consult, streamlining and coordinating everyone's efforts to use common terms for the same concepts. Here's an example of an Excel sheet. You may create as many tabs as you need, such as cultural celebrations, another tab for conferences, another tab for dress code, grades, graduation, your district's mission and vision, and many, many more. Now that we have our words profiled and categorized, We should decide on what platform to use for our glossary. Old school or new school? Here's an example of an interpreter who decided to use a notebook. What do you think about notebook usage? Do you already use a notebook? What advantages and disadvantages are there to notebook use? But if you want to have your glossary on a digital platform, there are plenty of options. The ones here are free. We hope we have given you fresh ideas for enhancing your glossaries and encourage you to share your new versions with classmates and the instructor in upcoming course sessions.